What's up, NIO family? It's Rey-Jay back with another video. And in this one, I wanted to break down what's happening with NIO, Tesla, SPY, and the overall markets. And break down some important things that Jerome Powell said, as he is quite uncertain about how things are going to pan out moving forward. But simultaneously, he remains quite optimistic about the economy, at least for now. Just know that I am not a financial planner, so take nothing I'm saying as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out my Moomoo link. If you deposit $100, you're guaranteed 5 free stocks. If you deposit $2,000, you're guaranteed 30 in total, and the offer ends at the end of March. Anyways, as far as NIO is going, there's a clear uptrend that's being respected right here. We have to see if NIO could hold this support, as we're seeing a lot of buyers who are stepping in. If this continues, we will once again continue this nice push. However, I want to see if we could try to hold support here. We might see a little bit of a dip to retest our 5.06 area before this tries to continue this uptrend. But keep in mind, we have earnings in just a couple of days for NIO and a bunch of other things affecting us. So I'm going to break down what's happening to NIO, then I'll break down the charts and Jerome Powell. So for now, there's nothing really too new that's coming out. The price-price ratio is still kind of flat. I'm not really seeing much of a change. Thursdays tend to be green about 49% of the time. And we tend to see a lot of volatility, towards the very end of the day. So that's what we're seeing so far. NIO is talking about their luxurious ET9, which I think is good because it's once again getting a lot more exposure. And what's helping the uptrend is the fact that we're seeing two Chinese giants trying to create a very, very good standard for battery swapping. We have CATL and NIO signing an agreement establishing a nationwide battery swapping network in China, which is, in my opinion, going to be very, very promising. This was a good short-term catalyst, especially as we approach earnings. So we'll see what else they talk about. Besides that, we had some data from the Fed that came out. Basically, the Fed announced that they're going to be planning on a little bit more cuts than before, as we're seeing their inflationary targets coming into fruition. However, what is concerning about all of this, though, is the fact that Jerome Powell is open to the possibility of a slight increase in inflation due to the tariffs. And he's mentioning that the long-term target is going to be fine, but there could be a short-term increase with the tariffs coming out. He does not have any idea, or he didn't announce that he has any idea about what the exact extent is going to be. And he remained very, very ambiguous. There's just these, if this will happen, if that will happen. He didn't really give us any straightforward answers, and he was just going back and forth. He was open to the possibility of the fact that the labor market could see some disruptions here and there. But overall, it's looking quite solid, and he continued to insinuate that. It's more like you're just going to wait and see what happens before they end up reacting. Then he was asked about how is this inflation going to be. He did say it's going to likely be transitory when it comes to these tariffs. Then he went on to just talk about how the economy is still in a very, very solid place. When asked about a recession, he said that so far they're bringing down inflation, making lots of progress, and he avoided a lot of questions. So what would I say about Jerome Powell? I would say that there's a lot of uncertainty about the future, but I do believe there's going to be a risk of unemployment going up, and I don't think that's very much like a good thing. I also think that with the inflationary risk of another increase, I think that Jerome Powell is trying to kind of sway away from kind of talking way too much about that, and we're continuing to see him talk about how uncertainty around the economic outlook has increased. So that's all we're basically seeing, the same thing being repeated over and over again. So we're just gonna have to wait and see. I mean, that's what Jerome Powell has been saying. Not really giving us too many positive insights. So it's just a matter of waiting. Looking at their numbers and what they're projecting a slight decrease in our real GDP. So they are anticipating that the rates will affect that. What could be happening is there might be a slight increase to unemployment, but he believes it's going to be very, very minor, and that the economy is going to remain resilient despite that. And that decrease to the labor market could cause our GDP to decrease as well. Could that be contributing to a slowdown in inflation? It's possible, as consumer spending is decreasing. So he's saying the same things over and over again. He's very uncertain. We have to wait and see what the data gives us. And that for the tariffs coming out, that may cause another increase in inflation, at least for the short term. But he remained very confident that PCE data is looking quite good, and they're going to be meeting their goal, most likely in their opinion, by like 2027 or so. So less than 2 years from now, around 2 years from now, they believe we'll reach our targets. And they, remain optimistic about that. So that's what Jerome Powell is saying. Um, it's possible, though, that there's a lot of things that can't be anticipated perfectly, which is what leads to uncertainty. He can't make his promises about what's going to happen with Trump's tariffs, how it's going to be affecting inflation and the economy. He can't make promises about that. He can't make promises about the labor market, even though he does see a slight little increase coming. And all of this uncertainty does kind of lead to a very, very big shift, because if we end up seeing, and this is what Jerome Powell did mention, there could be further cuts if we get a big spike in unemployment and inflation continues to drop down. That could incentivize them to cut even faster. So there's always that possibility as well. But for now, lots and lots of uncertainty. Jerome Powell's not giving us any confirmation yet. I do want to mention the fact that there's going to be some short term risks with what he was saying, in my opinion. The recessionary risks are there, even though Jerome Powell's not admitting that. And we have to just wait and see. We're not at that peak fear place yet. But for now, Jerome Powell is just trying to keep everyone calm headed, and he's being very careful with what he ends up announcing. So, once again, very, very uncertain, not really giving us much information. Zelensky had a call with President Trump today. They said that it was a very, very good call and they're making a lot of progress. So we'll see if there's any update when it comes to the ceasefire. So far, we're seeing negotiations continue. President Trump also mentioned that he's going to be, once again, increasing tariffs with more reciprocal tariffs coming out on April 2nd. He is continuing to pump that date. The market's still extremely fearful. And then for NIO, we actually have earnings on Friday. Besides that, we just have like FedEx and Nike tomorrow. So with that being said, we're on an uptrend. I do think we might pull back a bit to about 5.06 before it tries to bounce. As long as that holds, we could continue to push for like the 5.4s. For SPY, we're trying to rebound. We have a nice inverse head and shoulders like pattern. However, I want to see us break above 569. If that breaks, we're looking for an attempt to get back up towards 575. If we end up losing 563.5, it could be dipping back down towards 559. With this inverse head and shoulders, we're looking for an attempt to push higher to get back up towards these highs. So watch that very carefully, especially if we break this resistance. So for now, there's an inverse head and shoulders. If we end up losing support around this 563 area, we could turn back down. But I think the chart's looking a little bit more bullish as we've established a higher low here. As long as you hold above this higher low, this does have upside potential. So just to be very, very safe tomorrow as we get our reaction, if we lose support, we could turn back down. As long as we hold, we're going to continue to push. For the QQQ, the QQQ is, in my opinion, forming a nice double bottom. Pretty good setup, but we need to break past 485 to remain bullish. If we end up losing this low right here, around 472, we will be dumping back down. We're trying to make a higher low here, so we'll see if this continues to uptrend. Watch that very closely. For the Russell, we're looking for 205 as our main support. As long as that holds, we're looking for an attempt for 209. For ES, pretty good setup. I would have liked it to continue to break past 57.50. If we held above that, it would have been a lot better to fill this gap towards 5,800. Bullish setup, but we need confirmation first. Same thing with NQ. We're still below our resistance at 19,950. If we hold that, we could be looking for an attempt for 20,000. If we end up losing this low at 19,600, we could turn back down. I'm hoping we go higher, but we'll see just to be safe. Bitcoin was pushing. As long as we're above 85,000, we're looking for an attempt to get back up towards 87,500. For other tickers out there, I just want to say that Nvda has an inverse head and shoulders right here. As long as we get back above 118, we're looking for an attempt to get back up to 123, as long as we don't end up losing like 114. But there is potential in this. For Tesla, I think we're doing a fantastic job, at least thus far. In my opinion, I think that even though this is making lower highs, you want to see a break above 237. This is going to be our 20 EMA. If that breaks, we're looking for an attempt to get back up towards 244. If we reject and end up losing 230, we're looking for a dump lower, but overall, there is potential in this. So we'll see if 237 breaks, then 242 ends up coming, so watch that very closely. For Apple's forming a nice inverse head and shoulders. If we could hold above 215, we're looking for an attempt for 220. For others out there, we happen to have Coinbase. Coinbase, in my opinion, is doing a great job at trying to hold up, especially as we have this range. If we could break past 193, I'm looking for 196. I think we're still doing well. Amazon's looking okay, but I need to see this hold and get back above 199 to really start pushing. We are trying to form like a triple bottom, but there's no confirmation yet, so we're still technically range bound. Meta's trying to rebound off a bullish divergence, but we have to get back above 595 to bounce. If we can't, it's not going to be looking good. For Microsoft, we have to break past 388, and then Google needs to break past 169 to remain bullish. Otherwise, all the charts are range bound. So my view of NIO is that we could dip a little bit before it tries to bounce. We could be looking for a test of 5.07 first. With the news involving Jerome Powell, the market actually pumped because the Fed has kept rates the same, but they are projecting more cuts than previously expected. because of the fact that the inflation numbers are looking decent and they are projecting inflation to go down even more than expected for like the longer term, right? Despite the short term risks, the long term is looking a little bit better, at least from what the Fed is projecting. Now, projections are not always correct. You have to remember that because the Fed has told us many things, such as the fact that inflation will be transitory and this and that, and we can't always trust them. So for now, the market could try to pump off that hype, off that news, but there's nothing guaranteed yet until we see what else ends up happening. So we're bullish for now. I think NIO may continue this uptrend, especially as we approach earnings. Same thing with SPY and the QQQ, but we need more confirmation just to be safe. Anyways, I thank you all so much for listening. So please have a good rest of your day and peace out.